Tell me why you're calling.
Because brother, I want to be delivered fully. I believe I have the spiritual husband, because in my dreams they're always about lust, and I always dream about my father. He's already dead for how many years? Then I believe if you dream in dead people, that it's a witchcraft.
Not always. Send legions of holy angels to war against these serpents. Out! Out! Out in Jesus Christ's name.
Hello, my friends. So, this is the fourth installment of my video response to NYSTV and David Carrico, claiming that somehow the planet Venus, Lucifer in the Bible, a tarot card, a Babylonian fish monster, Albert Pike, and Eliphas Levi, somehow all of this leads to Luciferians believing that somehow the Pope being female, or being accused of being female early on, was somehow I honestly don't understand.
And they worship this Baphomet as Lucifer. It's the high icon of witchcraft and Satanism.
No, David, is not the high icon of witchcraft or Satanism, although the sigil of the Baphomet has been adapted by the Church of Satan.
And Lucifer to them is the hermaphroditic goat, the chimera. And originally, this is how we understand Lucifer properly. Lucifer is not Satan. He was the product of the union of the fallen angel Shahar with the human woman, and who knows what they did, whether he was born from what freakish mess or what, or whether they genetically altered, who knows what they did.
Well, before your imagination wanders off and creates some more unique insights into what Eliphas Levi wrote, let's look at what he actually wrote. I also did several videos on the Baphomet, which I will link below. Eliphas Levi wrote at the beginning of this chapter, he describes the Baphomet, the great beast of the Middle Ages, and worse than all of this, the Baphomet of the Templars, the bearded idol of the alchemists, the obscene deity of Mendes, the goat of the Sabbath. This sign expresses the perfect harmony of mercy with justice. One of the arms is feminine and the other is masculine, as in the androgyny of Kunra, whose attributes we have combined with those of our goat. Since they are one and the same symbol, the torch of intelligence burning between the horns is the magical light of universal equilibrium. It is also the type of the soul exalted above matter, even while connecting with matter, as the flame connects with the torch. The hideous head of the animal expresses horror of sin, for which the material agent alone responsible must alone and forever bear the penalty, because the soul is impassible in its nature, and can suffer only by materializing. The caduceus, which replaces the generative organ, represents eternal life. The scale-covered belly typifies water. The circle above is the atmosphere. The feathers still higher up signify the volatile. Lastly, humanity is depicted by the two breasts and the androgyny arms of the sphinx of the occult sciences. Behold the shadows of the infernal sanctuary dissipated. The dread Baphomet, henceforth, like all monstrous idols, enigmas of antique science and its dreams, is only an innocent and even pious hieroglyph. How should man adore the beast, since he exercises a sovereign power over it?
But what they come up with was something similar to what we're looking at here. And in the final go-round, and we talk about Lucifer, the son of Satan. Well, it might be Lucifer, the son of Satan, Lucifer, the daughter of Satan, Lucifer, the hermaphrodite of Satan. And the reason why that this is their God. He is their son of their God.
The alchemical representation of the Baphomet is our hermaphroditic God. Really. So it's not a hermetic representation of balancing opposites, dissolving and coagulating, refinement of oneself? No? Okay.
Because this is being snuck in everywhere. And it's going mainstream. And there are all kinds of infiltrators that are bringing these lies in.
So much paranoia and conspiracy theorists. You think this was Lucifer's plan to get Eliphas Levi to draw a picture of Baphomet and then have Taxil create a hoax claiming that the Masons worship Lucifer and then use the Baphomet image, all in the hopes of making this alchemical icon part of mainstream culture to then corrupt it? That was one well-thought-out plan.
And there we got it on the screen. This is the hermaphroditic child of their God. So in the Gnostic version, when the fall take place, we become male and female. So when things get fixed by their God, this is where we got. That's why there's sexual confusion. That's why all of this sexual perversion is being put forth as normal. This is godly to them. This is their God, the hermaphroditic God. This is Luciferianism.
So David believes that somehow the Baphomet image is responsible for transgenderism. We've always had gender bending. We have records of cross-dressing going back to ancient times. It's still a very small minority of human gender identity. Regardless of your irrational fear of transsexual and transgender people, the Baphomet has nothing to do with it. Neither do Freemasons or the transliteration of the term falling star to Lucifer.
When it comes to this and being able to trick people into believing this, do you think this is a demonic entity kind of pushing its way into the minds of people?
No, I think it's a projection of your paranoid, irrational fear, possibly brought on by your denial of your own homosexual tendencies. Basically, you hate what you are, and you hate what you have become even more.
I guess I would say, what is the agenda of the government? Because you see GMOs, you see all these different things that can change people and their attitudes towards this. What would be the benefit of an entire generation of people that think that they're male and female?
You think the government is behind the agenda of making the Baphomet image mainstream so that it would one day make people transgender and gay? Wouldn't that diminish on the number of soldiers they will need when they put all the Christians in FEMA camps? I mean, have you really thought this one through, David?
Well, it's their theology.
I've already pointed out the theology behind alchemy and the icon of Baphomet, which is well documented in both Eliphas Levi's and Hermetic writings.
Donna led the charge on fighting against the witchcraft books in the school library.
There was a time when it was bad, very bad, to ban books, and seeking praise as someone who is in favor of that makes my skin crawl. We have opened doors to a very tyrannical and fascist state when we allow anyone to control information, regardless of whether we agree with it or we don't agree with it.
They hate Christianity.
Let me be clear. I don't hate Christianity. I do dislike the fact that you spread lies about people like Eliphas Levi and Albert Pike, but I don't hate you.
And their theology is this sexual confusion.
No, it's not their theology. Who are you referring to? The imaginary Luciferians? I forgot. This all stems from the female pope as Lucifer. So how does this tie into all of this, David?
And they want to normalize their sexual morals that goes along with their God.
Who? What morals? What morals are you basing this on? Where did you find these morals, and why do you think they pertain to sexual confusion? Did Eliphas Levi write these morals? If so, what book are you getting these from? Was it from Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma? Where does Albert Pike write about anything about sexual confusion?
Incest, even to many pagans, is something that is disgusting. But this is something that is celebrated as good.
In the Bible, yes, we all know about Lot and his daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger, Father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night. They got their father drunk, and then they raped him. This is okay in the Bible. They don't condemn it. They don't speak against it. This is all okay. This was all under God's permission. Apparently their God believes that this is okay. Alrighty. Let me take a quick shower, and I will be right back.
And in the Nag Hammadi codices, in the Revelation of Adam on page 354, it says, the father deceived his own daughter. She became pregnant from her father. She cast the tomb out into the desert, and the angel nourished her there. You know, this is their gods. This is what they do. Incest, perversion, some of this stuff, I don't even know what some of the stuff is they're talking about.
Yeah, it's pretty strange, but I read it as metaphorical, and that seems to help a little bit.
And you see, this is the sexual morals of this Kabbalistic, Gnostic apostolate. This is their agenda. And this Baphomet here, this represents the whole thing here.
Gnostic Kabbalistic apostate? Okay, that's quite a hefty title. What exactly are you basing this on? Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against Gnostics or Kabbalists, nor those who have a more modern interpretation of Christianity. I actually welcome it. But what does anything you have brought forth have to do with Gnostics or the Kabbalists?
The reason we're seeing the explosion of this filth. It's the theology of their God. This is Luciferianism, and it's all encoded right here in the Baphomet. This is their God. This is Lucifer.
The world has gotten very small very quickly. I understand that by your religious interpretation you perceive that men are men and women are women, but reality offers another interpretation, and that is that the identity of masculine and feminine in individuals. It does not mean that the majority of people are suddenly going to turn gay and dress like girls. A very small minority of people have gender dysphoria. It is not the goal and purpose of Satan to turn everyone into drag queens. David then meanders off talking about some caves in Rome or something, and this is proof of a female pope or Lucifer or something. I'm really not sure.
In the sacred cave at Cumae near Lake Avernus, dedicated to Triple Hecate. The cave was formed as an entrance to the underworld. Sibyls called up the dead there for necromantic interviews. Abomination according to Torah. Deuteronomy 18.
Yes, David, this is what the pre-Christian culture practiced. Divination and worship of multiple gods and goddesses. They were pagan polytheists, David. Can you say polytheist, David? Do you know what it means, David?
Here in the Vatican, these were pagan goddesses. They did necromancies, every kind of perversion and pagan ritual.
Yes, they performed every kind of pagan perversion that you could possibly imagine. They were very, very naughty, bad pagans.
And here at the Vatican, up top above the wall, there are pictured the Hebrew prophets paired up with these Sibyls. And they have Isaiah with the Sibyl, Jeremiah with the Sibyl. And they are equating the prophecy of these Sibyls with the Hebrew prophets. Rank blasphemy. Now, you don't have to be the sharpest knife in the drawer to figure this out.
Oh, good. I was wondering why I was seeing so much bullshit here and there, because I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed. However, I have linked to the Vatican Museum for those interested in the exhibition. These secret rooms, which aren't secret at all, depict the Roman Sibyls, representing ideas expressed through the various prophets as well as the Roman planet gods. This is an obvious nod to pre-Christian history and how Christianity was accepted by the pre-Christian Roman peoples. In the octagonal tiles of the immediate panels, the 7 major planets are depicted, represented in the sky as divinities borne triumphantly on a chariot pulled by allegorical animals with the related sign of the zodiac. The human, social, and professional categories subject to the influence on Earth are shown. Saturn in the works of charity, love and the hunters, Venus and love, Apollo and governors, Mars and warriors, Mercury and merchants, Luna and fishermen, and finally, in the last panel, a number of astronomers and the armillary sphere, symbol of astrology, a subject of great interest to the patron of the work. What should they have done, David? Should they have destroyed all pagan art? Should they have removed the concept of the oracles, defaced all images of Roman mythology? Should they have erased all trace of pre-Christian faith and belief? Would that have been more satisfactory to you, David?
This is not anything that is veiled or in any way hidden. It's right there in the Vatican Museum. Now, in this next slide, this is a map like you can find in many study Bibles. It's a map of the missionary journeys of St. Paul. And here at the bottom of the map, you can see Delphi and Corinth. And at the top of the Aegean Sea, you see Thessalonica and you see Philippi. And there's another city there called Apollonia. And as this might obviously, you can tell from the name, this is named after the god Apollo.
Yes, David, before Christianity spread like a cancer, I meant to say spread west, and it encountered a whole world where Christianity was foreign. There were pre-Christian cultures that named their cities after their gods. I know it's a shock. Just take a couple of deep breaths, David. You're going to be all right. Go read a couple of Bible verses.
And this is the area, this is ground zero for these pagan prophetesses, the oracle at Delphi.
Ground zero? You mean this is a representation of what the people and culture of Greece believed and practiced before Christianity came to dominate? Is that what you mean by ground zero, David?
Let's read a scripture here. When Paul came into this region, Acts chapter 16, this is heading toward a destination. And in the female pope and Lucifer, we're getting a very good picture of what's coming. On this pedestal, at the bottom of these twisted columns, in slide 20 here, we have the 8 faces that are on the pedestals. And these 8 faces are faces of women that are giving birth, women in childbirth. And I believe the obvious symbolism here, this is just like Pope Joan bringing forth her child. I believe that this symbolism represents the birth that will come and of the final one that's going to sit underneath this canopy.
David, that's really fascinating that you think that way. However, scholars disagree. Irving Lavin, in his book Visible Spirit, The Art of Gael Lorenzo Bernini, Volume 3, The Pedestals of the Baldacchino, Footsteps on the Way to Redemption, states the following. References to the tribulation and joys of childbirth were understood as the labor and suffering of the Mother Church in bringing about salvation through a healing of the souls by virtue of Christ's sacrifice at the crucifixion, reenacted in the Eucharist sacrifice of the Masses. The pedestals of the Baldacchino incorporate as cornerstones the two stones, Peter and Mary, on which Christ built his church. Following the words about childbirth in the book of Revelation and from Christ's own mouth as reported by St. John, the tribulations and ultimate jubilation of childbirth depicted on the pedestals reenact the process of salvation that is achieved in the sacrifice at the altar and triumphs with the resurrection of Christ in the original plan for the Baldacchino and with the world dominion of the cross as it was executed.
And all of this symbolism and all of this scripture, it tells us a consistent story. From a book entitled The Mysteries of Magic by Eliphas Levi, and this is kind of the grand crescendo. And he is the fella that did the wood carving of the Baphomet, which we showed you earlier. And he tells he was a Catholic priest that got thrown out of the Catholic Church. And you got to be pretty bad to get thrown out of the Catholic Church, but he was.
No, David, in 1840, Eliphas Levi left the church. Alfonso Constant, which is Eliphas Levi's real name, was drawn to the occult and later met a girl. You can't be a priest and be married at the same time. Then, finally, after a huge argument with a father abbot, he left the church never to return. He received his education in the church of St. Sulpice. Despite the fact that he came from a conventional religious background, he began from an early age to discover that he had leanings towards the occult. After graduating from school, he took up the priesthood but enjoyed only a short success since his political views were decidedly left-wing, and he also had an eye for the ladies. He wrote freely expressing his opinions and indeed served several short sentences in prison as a result of his outspokenness. Soon after he came into contact with a gentleman by the name of Ganuel, who by all account was involved in magic and the occult and was equally eager to pass on his learning to his new student. He lived from the earnings of his writings for a time on the subject of the occult and took the name of Magus Eliphas Levi, names which are the Hebrew equivalent of his first names. Brilliant student, he was selected as a potential candidate for the priesthood in the Roman Catholic Church. He receives the minor orders, then the diaconates, on December 19th, 1835, and should have been a priest the following year. But he meets a young woman who, as he wrote later, initiated him to life. She was Flora Tristan, an activist for women's liberation and promoter of collectivism. The painter Gauguin was her grandson. The young man became attracted by monastic life. He entered the famous monastery of Solsmes in July of 1838, where he studied Gnosticism, the early fathers, George Sand, and then still unknown works of Madame Guyon. Following an argument with Father Abbot Dom Guerguinero, he left the monastery in 1840 and works as a playground monitor. While writing his first book, The Bible of Freedom, developing the ideas of the liberal Catholic Lamennais, the authorities seized the book at the request of the Roman Catholic Church, and Alfonso was sent to prison for 8 months and condemned to pay a huge fine. Incapable of paying the fine, he had to stay another 11 months in jail.
And he was a black magician.
No, he wasn't. But according to your worldview, everyone is a black magician, Luciferian Satanist.
And he wrote the textbooks on black magic.
No, he didn't. He contributed greatly to the Hermetic occult magical realms, but he did not write the textbooks on black magic. You might be thinking of someone else. That person might have been A.E. Waite, as he wrote a book called The Book of Black Magic, which is a textbook on what he called black magic. Anyone familiar with the history of the occult is familiar with this text and what it is based off.
And in this book, he talks about when he was in Paris, there was this fella that came in there by the name of Eugene Ventris. And to make a long story short, he had his priest robes on that had a phallic symbol on his head.
No, he didn't. Where the hell are you getting this? It's definitely not written in the Mysteries of Magic.
And he performed a miraculous communion. And he not only performed a miraculous communion, but he imparted to Eliphas Levi the ability to perform this. I'll just read a little bit of here, just briefly. Okay. Where I want to read here. Okay.
A few moments later.
On page 456, it says, thousands of hosts appear on altars where there were none. Wine sparkles in empty chalices, and it is no delusion. It is a wine, a delicious wine. Celestial music is heard. The fragrance of another world diffuses itself, and finally, blood, true human blood, which doctors have examined, exudes and sometimes flows copiously from the host, leaving mysterious characters thereon. And he goes on for several pages talking about the occult miracles this guy did and how this blasphemous mass, and this is the Luciferian mass that I believe will be performed underneath this canopy in the final go-round.
Well, you have a very vivid and specific imagination. I'm not going to even try and explain this dialogue between Eliphas Levi and the Monsignor. If you think Eliphas Levi believes that actual blood would be produced during some corrupted Catholic Mass in the Vatican, then you are just gullible. Would a female pope have to perform it wearing a fish hat, David? Or is that part optional?
And this is something all the way back before we even studied any of this out, back in 2001, I believe. Donna said she had a revelation from God. And always when someone says that, I'm going to try it, no matter who it is.
I had a revelation from God once. Will you believe me?
But she said she believed that the Lord revealed to her that the final worship of the false prophet was going to be a miraculous Luciferian mass where the wine would turn to real blood and the flesh would turn to real meat.
Really, I had the same revelation, except in my revelation it turned to cherry soda, fried chicken strips, and ice cream. I may have been fasting during this revelation, so yeah.
Eliphas Levi and other occult masters that are in this Luciferian priesthood, they perform this. This has been going on for a long, long time.
What occult heavyweights? What Luciferian circles? This is not what they do, David. Eliphas Levi was not a Luciferian. And if he would claim to have performed this, why did he not explain that in his books?
And in the final go-round, under Bernini's canopy, this will be the miracle that is going to deceive the masses to where the whole world will wonder after the beast. And the Kabbalistic, Gnostic apostolate.
Wow, you really like saying that, don't you? What was that again?
Kabbalistic.
The Kabbalistic.
Gnostic apostolate.
Apostolate? I think referring to Eliphas Levi as a Kabbalist Gnostic is not that far off, although he didn't identify as either of those. He definitely was aware of and studied the Kabbalah. I would not call him an apostolate. He disagreed with doctrine of the church, but he never claimed to not believe in a higher power.
Will be established in its final go-round when Lucifer will ascend to the throne.
This is the end of my video response to Now You See TV and David Carrico. Thank you all so much for watching this, and until next time, I will see you in hell, you heathens.